What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Great Men with Shane Sams. Got a podcast here to help all you good men out there become great on your terms. And I'm really excited to catch up with an old friend, Rocky Lalvani. And it's like Yalvani, it's Lalvani. It's not Lalvani like my Appalachian accent wants to say it. But Rocky, what's going on, man? Good to see you, dude.
It's great to chat with you, Shane. It's been a
Yeah, man.
while and looking forward to catching up.
Always love talking to guys that are doing the work. And we'll unpack what that means here in a minute. But tell everybody just real quick, about your background, what you do for a living, content you create out in the world, all that good stuff.
Sure. So I'll go way, way back. I'm an immigrant to the United States, came here as a small kid, parents, starting over. And so I watched how to essentially build wealth over time and how to do those types of things. Our family talked about money, their friends talked about money. And so I just thought that was normal. I came to learn much later in life that people don't talk about money, which is
No, they
funny
do not.
because we spend all our time going to school, learning how to make money, but nobody actually talks about the money part of it. Cultural things, I was very entrepreneurial as a kid, so I was always making a buck, always hustling and doing stuff. Went to college because that's what we were told to do. Came out of college and I at that point I didn't know how to start a business. From I knew the entrepreneurial side, but I really didn't know how to take my skills and turn it into something that I could do. So just kind of a step back. I started playing with spreadsheets when the Apple II computer came out. So I've been playing with
You're
numbers and
dating yourself, son.
spreadsheets.
You're
Oh,
dating
I'm dating
yourself, bro.
myself, right? This is
Yeah.
everything I do is on spreadsheets. So I get out of college and I had adults coming to me and I was working in a bank running spreadsheets for them. I didn't know how to say to the world, hey, I can build you a spreadsheet. People are like, what's that and why do I care? And I didn't understand the value prop. So you get a job and you end up doing good, right? Life was good, but it wasn't great. And that's the problem. I think the enemy of great is good. When things are
Totally.
comfortable,
Oh, it's
you
the
kind
worst.
of get stuck in that. And so I did good, but I understood finance, so I learned how to build wealth. And then at some point you're like, okay, I have all this money. I don't necessarily have the happiness. I don't love what I do. Now is the time to start deciding what do I really want to do? How am I going to do it? What does that look like? And making those changes. And that whole process has taken, oh God, probably 15 years to now to just working through it. So now I work with business owners because I was shocked that business owners don't understand finance either. I'm like, how do you run a business and not know your numbers?
Dude, you grind. You just grind and keep selling.
That is not the way. That's
That's not the
hard.
way.
That's
That is
not
too
the way.
hard,
That's
man.
hard. I'm like, how do we do this the easy way? How do
Yeah.
we run our business, make it easy, learn how to make money, and learn how to keep money? So that was two, people know how to make money. Very few people know how to keep money. And so that's what we
100%.
do. We help people in their business learn how to build it up and keep it and take it out of the business so that they never have to worry. So they can
Yeah,
enjoy
man.
life and have fun.
I think my dad talked to me about money more than most dads did. Like I remember him getting me a checkbook when I was 13 and teaching me how that worked, how to balance it, which is probably more than 80% of kids get coming out of high school, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying?
I
And
was learning about how to get a mortgage and how to buy houses and
not me, dude. I had no
how
clue about that.
compounding works.
That's the I was the basics, son. This is Kentucky we're talking about here. Like, don't get ahead of myself. But I started out as an employee. I kind of got the bug of entrepreneurship a little later in life, like 35, and I didn't get the bug of owning a business. I actually kind of adopted that because that's what everybody told me what to do. I just knew I wanted to. I wanted freedom. I wanted at least control over my finances, and I wanted control over my time, and that was really how I got started. And probably about 6 years ago, me and Jocelyn, my wife, we had done very well for ourselves. Did not understand the keeping it part. I would make my millions and lose a million and make my whatever it was, whatever it was. You know what I'm saying? So we learned that process, and I got to a point where people would look up and go, "Dude, that dude is killing it. He's doing everything the gurus say, all the experts say." And I was in that spot. I was like, well, I've got the kids, I've got the family, I've got the cool house, I got the cars, I got the money in the bank account, I got the emergency funds, I got the investments for retirement, and I just looked around, and something was just so missing. It was just totally gone. And it was because I had attached everything on these external checklists I'd learned from everybody else, whether it was my family, whether it was my church, whether it was my growing up, whether it was like whatever coach I had hired to teach me how to do the thing at the quote unquote, like next level. And about 2020, 2021 is where the wheels fell off. And I realized the answers were not going to be found externally, they were going to be found internally. And I think for a lot of good men out there who are they've got the checklist and they're like, what is missing? Their life is very much in their head, like way, 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 way in their head. And, I think what I have learned through my growth over the last couple of years, we can talk about this, is that happiness and that joy is not going to be found totally in your head. It's going to be found somewhere like inner work, like in your body, in yourself, maybe your soul, whatever it is. Like what's your journey been? Because I know you do a lot of somatic work, and we've been on similar journeys with our mental health. When did you kind of realize that it wasn't just going to be done on spreadsheets? There's got to be something else to find that happiness and joy in your life.
And so that was my first kind of entrepreneurial pivot. I started a podcast. It was called Richer Soul. The tagline was, "You got rich, now what?" Because it
That's
was,
a great tagline, dude. Dude, how many people have thought that exact same thing? Like dudes just sitting there looking in the mirror going, what is happening right now?
yeah. And so that was kind of my journey into saying what really matters. And at that point, I was doing it alone, or I was trying to look around and find the right answers. Because I'm from India, I have that mix of East and West. So I can see both sides. I can see how they integrate. I can see where one side might be better than the other in certain parts. I can see where the other side might be better and how they all come together. Again, this point is still early. I mean, we're talking, actually, no, this is early. We'll call it early in the internet.
Okay.
When I grew up, information was gold.
Yeah, totally.
If you wanted to buy the Encyclopedia Britannica, it was $2,000 in 1970. I mean, and it gave you a paragraph, right? Today, information's free.
Yeah.
And so the world has changed. And I still was stuck in the old paradigms of how to do things. So for me, it was letting go of a lot of that programming that I was taught, seeing that the world changes and you have to change with it. So that was kind of the early parts of the journey, was starting to see how the rest of the world behaved from a
Mm.
view that was different than mine. So getting out of my bubble and being able to see that. I think that was part A. I mean, I grew up with the Marlboro Man. Guys don't,
Ditto.
you want to cry, we'll give you something to cry about. Suck it up, buck it up.
Yep.
Right, right. And that's just the way the world was. So having to shift out of that. So that was the early part, just doing a lot of that. And then at one point, as part of that, because I kept looking, but I not finding.
Mm.
And so I went on a journey very similar to yours. And during that weekend, it was like, boom, just cracking open and going, hey, the reason you're behaving like this is because you've got all this armor because of all these things that occurred in your childhood.
Yeah,
And
man.
are you aware of them? And so
Yeah.
that just kind of like was like opening everything up. And then from there was just years of doing the inner work of and seeing it. And the inner work is really annoying. And I'll tell you why.
You
Every
can't
time
unsee it for
you
one thing.
but every time you think you've gotten to the center,
Yeah.
it's like, oh no, no, no. That's just that layer.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
a
yeah. There's
whole
something else
nother layer.
behind that and behind that, and it's like an infinite regress of just deep into your subconscious forever. You're like,
It,
yeah, man.
I think I finally resolved to the fact that I will never get to the center. And that's
Yeah,
a
man.
hard thing to accept. that you'll
Totally.
never have the
The
answer,
total clarity or
the
whatever.
total clarity.
And what we're talking about here, so a journey is a intentional retreat where you step out of the real world. I mean, you step out of the bubble. You're usually coming with a group of maybe people you know, maybe strangers. They're facilitated and led by people who know how to like do inner work, guide you through things. They will often involve substance like maybe some kind of psychedelic or a ketamine or things like that. And your goal is to be aware of that inner truth, aware of what's holding you back, creating your blocks, creating resistance, creating honestly that big force field around happiness. And you can't figure out how to like break through it. And a journey can be enlightening. It can also be very, 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 very challenging. And it's really designed to look inward, look at yourself in the mirror, and figure out the truth of your life. But I'll tell you what, Rocky, I'll tell you what, this took me 2 years of therapy, journeys, mental health work, whatever it is to like kind of like figure out myself is I think people think they're going to find like this one thing that happened in their childhood that makes them everything they're going to be forever and they can fix that. But really, you're just unpacking the memories for sure, but really it's the stories. It's the stories that got attached, the interpretation of events. That's where I have found a lot of my greatest work. And then it's that integration process of how do you work through that? How do you reinterpret the story? How do you learn from it? And then how do you then apply that to your life to kind of create more peace and happiness and all of those things. So like when you got into inner work, when you found that first layer, were you in your body? Were you in your head? Where did you feel it? And like what was that kind of aha moment when you started saying, "Oh, the answers are all inside myself and I just have to have the courage to kind of look at them."
I think I knew because of Eastern philosophy that the answers were inside. It's
Mm.
just that I was blocked to seeing the inside. And
Ah,
so let's
interesting.
take a step back here because I think people need to understand. People look at this and they go, oh, it's woo woo. It's like this, that. There's actually science behind this,
Totally.
a good amount of it. So let's just talk about how the mind works and some of the basics. From the age of 0 to 7 is one stage. And you'll notice if you see a kid from 0 to 7, they learned English, right? They learned
Yeah.
to walk, they learned to eat, they learned to do all this stuff. Did anyone go to school to learn how to walk?
Exactly.
No, no. Kids at that stage are literally in a state where they can learn, memorize, do all these things in a massive way. Their brain is in that state that allows them to do that. It's
Mm.
just the way we're designed. 7 to 13 is another state. And that 7 to 13 state is where they're trying to understand how it all kind of comes together. What do these things mean? What's real? What's not? That's why Santa Claus becomes fake. The Easter Bunny becomes fake, right? All of a sudden, you start challenging the stories. And then once they get above 13, it's trying to separate from their parents. It's also trying to make their way, which is also a very argumentative state where they're trying to break free. And so those are the different things. The problem that occurs is in those early states, we come up with stories like you talked about. And as I've interviewed a bunch of people on that podcast, a lot of them are psychiatrists, psychologists, we're trying to understand. As I read these books, I find out most of them are parenting books, right? Because most of these psychology books are all the things that parents so called screwed up in you when you were a kid,
So
not
called. I love what you said there.
purposely.
Yeah.
Well, it's not purpose. Even if you read the book like Mindset by, I forget her name, how you talk to your kids sets them up for success or failure. It's not that you're trying to do that, it's just how the human mind does it. And I remember one story with one of my guests. He was a psychologist. His whole family was great with relationships. He could not have relationships.
Mm.
And for the life of him, he couldn't understand why. And he ended up at this program, and his brother was there, and he had this aha moment. He goes, "When I was 3, we were all sitting around the fire, and my father started beating me. And
Mm.
so I didn't know if I could trust people anymore.
Mm.
His brother looked at him and said, "You freaking idiot. You fell in the fire, you caught on fire, and dad was
Yes.
putting the fire out." And
But it's
he
but
went,
but the kid interpreted the story. That's all
yeah,
they remembered. Yeah,
that's
man.
all they remembered. And the moment that shift happened, then everything else flew.
Yeah, man.
And
Yeah.
so I think that's what a lot of it is. It's getting that aha. Now, did that one shift change his life? I mean, it helped, but then you find the
It
next
nudges the
shift and the next
asteroid.
shift, the next shift.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
like,
man.
oh, that is why I behave this way. Oh, I didn't notice this unconscious behavior. It's not because of what I think, it's because of this programming.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we're
A
all
neural
running
pathway
on
that fired.
we're running on programming of a 7-year old, which is
Mm.
why most guys act like they're 7 years old. I mean, let's face
Dude,
it.
hey, I've been there in the past, bro. I can look at myself pre 2020, and I was like, what was I even doing half the time? I tell you the thing, man. It's so funny how the journey does work that way because I think some people they start doing inner work, and if you get into pop psychology and you get into the wrong kind of therapist, they're just gonna like dive you into this quote unquote, this might be a little insensitive, but trauma, or whatever we call it. That's the word that the buzzword everybody uses. And you get stuck there because you're like, well, this happened to me. This is how I am. I'm deterministic. I have this programming. This is what I do. I see so many people who do inner work. They find this thing and it almost becomes like an excuse. But a couple years ago, man, I read this book called The Courage to Be Disliked. It's by an
Hmm.
Asian author. I can't pronounce his name, but it fundamentally shifted how I think about like the past because it's based on the work of this psychiatrist called named Alfred Adler, who was kind of working through, with Freud and Jung and all those things. But what was interested about that is that he said there is no trauma, there is only an interpretation of a memory that set a goal in your life to be treated like a certain way. You got that book? I see you looking at your
I
bookshelf there.
do. I don't know
Yeah,
where it is. It's
yeah, man.
somewhere in here, or
But
it's over there, maybe.
what I learned from that book, and I've went through a lot of his work, which
Yeah.
it's like everything else. You got to take what you think, and you got to, you know, get rid of the rest. There it is on the screen right there. The Courage to Be Disliked. Great audio book too, because it's written and they do different voices for the parts. But he said something interesting in there that our memories. My one way I interact with the world now after a lot of work, inner work, is our memories are not complete. They are interpretations based on incomplete information. Like you can't remember 100% of what happened yesterday. No one can sit here and almost, well, maybe not no one, but like with a photographic memory, remember exactly what happened yesterday. If you were at lunch with somebody and you think you remember an exact conversation, they remember it differently. And if you look back 5 years ago, your memory drops down to like 60 to 80%. You look 25, 30, 40 years ago, we're talking in the 10 to 20th percentile. And every time you recall one of these memories, it's going to reconstruct and move a little bit. And that was so freeing to me to realize, okay, great. I got this memory. This is how I remember it happening. But there's a different way I can look at this. There's a different way I can look at these things that shaped me. There's a different way I can interpret them in the moment so that I don't have to be a slave to my quote unquote trauma, right? There's not really trauma. There's just a story that you've laid on top of it. And I think if a lot of dudes, man, it's hard to confront those traumatic memories though, man. Like I had a teacher. I don't know if I've ever told this story before. I've got ADHD. Like I'm diagnosed. I'm as bad as it gets. It's my superpower and my curse in my adult life because I can't do what I do without it, but it causes problems as well. So it's kind of a struggle. And I was in the 80s when everybody started realizing there was this thing called ADD. Nobody really knew what it was. They were trying to figure out how to treat it. And like, kids, they were always trying to put me on medicine. My parents really didn't want me to be on it because they didn't understand what was going on. But I had this teacher, man, like in first or second grade, and I was so like rambunctious that I would come in And for months, as far as I can remember it, I don't know exactly what happened. I don't trust the memory totally now, but she would spank me viciously before class started to scare me into behaving. Like she wouldn't wait until it got so bad that like it bruised me and hurt me, and my mom has pictures of it. So this happened, some version of this happened, but that's the story that I've always lived with, and that created a lot of like mistrust. I can look back now and see how that created mistrust of women, mistrust of authority. I was very rebellious against authority when I was a kid because I interpreted this as women just want to hurt me, teachers just want to hurt me, authority just wants to hold me down and hurt me, and they want to, and it doesn't matter what I do because I'm going to get punished anyway. But man, when I remembered that memory in this way after reading that book, it just completely shifted how I can like reinterpret that, like how I can give her grace for whatever she was dealing with. And like it allowed me to start looking around at how that was impacting my relationship with my spouse, my relationship with my daughter, my relationship with authority. Like I know for a fact, dude, there's been two times in my entrepreneurial journey where I I rebelled against something and it cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars because it was just an automated program that a first grade kid was running in the background and said, well, nope, no matter what you do, they're going to punish you anyway. So you don't want to feel that anymore. You got to get out of here. But once you know that and you're aware of it, you can do something different. And I think that's where a lot of good men get stuck on that road to greatness is they're still running that 7-year old program.
They are. And let's just say the program is nothing more than an interpretation. And what I mean by
Totally.
that is two people can listen to this exact podcast and walk away with two different takeaways,
Mm,
right?
totally. 100%.
And so it's because their filters, their programming is interpreting things in a certain way, just like you interpreted that in a certain way. And so you have to just be aware of it and
Yeah.
challenge it and ask yourself, is that really true? And
Yeah.
more often than not, you start to realize that it's an interpretation of what you think it was. And
Yeah.
that's where the
Yeah.
change starts.
I've got a buddy that I met at one of these retreats, and he was like, we were talking about like I was kind of at that early stage where I was unpacking that I even was vulnerable enough to look back into my past to try to find the stories, and I was getting stuck on this one particular shaping event in my life. And he reached over and hit my knee and he said, "Dude, it's never too late to have a good childhood. Just change the story. Like just look at it from a totally different angle." And like that happened, but what was the benefit of that? Like what there was challenges. That was a challenging thing to go through, and your brain created a story to survive. But that story doesn't work anymore in your current adult life. So can you rewrite that and find a benefit of that? Like ADHD. Like I know ADHD comes from all these different environmental factors and things like that. But like I can't go and host a 10,000 person event for an entire day, being backstage at production, in and out of the stage, making adjustments on the fly as things go wrong. Like that is the ultimate ADHD superpower. Is like I can do this crazy job I do sometimes, right? Have you found that in your life that once you're aware of it, you can reinterpret, extract the benefits and let it push you actually forward instead of hold you back?
Absolutely. Even before going on the journey, I already was aware of that. You get
Mm,
to interpret the story the way you want it. If you actually think about it, if you go ask anyone, well, if you ask successful people who are at least self-aware and you say, would you go back and change things? The answer is usually no, because it made me who I am.
yes,
And
sir.
so people don't necessarily want to change the past because they realize, if you change one thing, it changes a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know what that other future might be. Maybe it was better, maybe it wasn't. But at this point, you can't do anything about it anyway. But you can at least let go of the emotion that's attached to it or change
Yes.
the emotion that's attached to it. And I think for a lot of people, that's a big part of it. If you've got emotions from your past that are vivid 4K, like high density emotions like that, there are many things that you can do to turn them into like black and white, or turn them way down to like, you know, a radio signal where you can talk about it without the emotional charge.
Mm,
And I think for people who have autoimmune diseases or other types of things, if you can learn to turn down those charges, a lot of the other things will go away.
yeah. Let's talk about that. What does that inner work look like for you? What tools have you found like
Mm.
on your journey to find this? What frameworks do you use? Like one of the frameworks, one of the things that I have noticed is my mornings have always been like I kind of open my eyes in the morning and I'm like, "Oh, shit. We woke up again. Whoa, what's going on?" Right? It takes me a minute to orient myself because there's like a there's a cortisol spike in the morning to wake you up on the science side. And like cortisol is also the stress hormone. So it can kind of trigger those ruminations or anxieties or whatever. And, I used to sit in that emotion a lot. Like I'd sit there for an hour, drink a cup of coffee, try to journal a little bit. And like, but it would disrupt my day a little bit, especially in times of stress. Right. But one thing that I've really found is my number one thing in the morning is getting into my body as fast as possible. I really love to lift weights. I love to pick up heavy things because like the heavier the thing I'm picking up, once you reach a certain poundage on a particular exercise, your brain has no choice but to focus all of your energy on not dying under the bench bar or whatever, right? Like I say all the time, like I pick up heavy things, and but just that 10 toes down, get to movement as fast as possible. There's routine baked into it, where it used to take me on bad days an hour and a half, 2 hours to clear my mind and even get to work. I'm out the door in 10 minutes. I'm at the gym by halfway through the gym, I'm already texting people I'm going to talk to that day. I'm just really into that, into my body. What have you found helps you get out of those spirals, get out of your head, get out of those emotionally charged feelings that you can't even place sometimes?
I think the fastest way to do that, honestly, is breath work.
Mm,
And the reason I say that is you can change your state in minutes if you understand how to breathe. And I know it sounds kind of silly, but if you think about it, if you're excited, how are you breathing? If you're
mm,
scared, how are you breathing? If you're anxious, how are you breathing? All of those things bring a different breathing pattern. And so if you just change your breathing pattern, then you automatically change your state. You're doing it in reverse. And breathing is one of the few natural things that we actually have total control over. In other words, I could kind of control my heartbeat if I practiced and figured it out, but I can control my breath immediately, right?
yeah.
It's one of those things that I have total control over. And if you think about it, like Navy SEALs, they do box breathing,
Yep.
and that
What is
allows them.
that? That's four in, hold four, out four, or something like that. Like
Yeah,
something
it's
like that.
it's
Yeah.
basically a 4-4-4-4 cycle, but you can also go to like a 6-6-6 cycle. You can do other types of cycles. Like if you want to calm down, it's like a 4-7-8 cycle.
Yeah, that's
Um,
that's the one that really helps me is like in for 4 to 5, but out for like 7 to 8, and really expel. Like if I'm needing to calm down because someone's pissed me off or something like that, that's the one I've found that helps me a lot for sure.
and it will, because what it's telling your body is I'm calm.
Mm,
You're forcing your body from fight or flight into be calm, and your body just reacts to the signals. It doesn't know what your mind is saying, it's reacting to the feelings. And what
yeah,
you're doing is you're telling your body, I want this feeling, and it gives it to you. And it does it in 2 or 3 minutes. It doesn't require a tremendous amount of
yeah.
time. But learning what all the different techniques are, learning how they affect you and which ones work better for you. There's no perfect book, right? It's not like do
Exactly.
this.
I hate it when people are like, if you just do these three things, it works for everybody. It's like that Gary Brecka guy. Like I like some of the stuff. Or is that his name? Gary Brecka? Whatever. He's like some kind of expert on health or whatever. But like they're just so deterministic. Like if you just take magnesium, if you just take some salt, everything, all your problems will be solved. And I'm like, shut up, dude. I'm different. Like me and Rocky got different bodies, different brains, different clothes, like different houses. But that's not true, you know. But I mean, but if you piece these things together and build your own version of what works for you, that really works well. Like I learned something one time. My son, which I've talked about in other podcasts and stories, I won't go into the whole story, but he had a very traumatic experience when he was little at a daycare where this lady was locking him in a bathroom like for hours at a time. Look, it was crazy when we found out about it. I had kind of started working on myself a little bit this time, so I knew we needed some support. Went to therapy and with my son, and she had this interesting thing. I picked this piece up, and I got kind of into. I'm actually just really getting my breath work in where I'm trying to do it more as a part of my journey. But like getting present to me is like the fastest way to get out of the past or out of the future. Because I find that most men that I work with, they're either constantly in their head ruminating about the past and all the mistakes they've made or choices they didn't make or whatever, or they're very creative and their brains create 19 versions of the future every second and they're never just like now. And one of the things that she told my son, and we did this for like a year straight every night before he would go to bed because he had trouble sleeping, or before he got scared of going into bathrooms. So we had to work on getting present to go to the bathroom. And it was first you start in the mind because we're all in the mind. So it's called 5 4 3 2 1, and you start up here in your head and you go, what's five things I see in my immediate vicinity that I was not looking at before? And then it goes down like four things that you're touching, three things you can hear, two tastes you've tasted that day or right now, and then one smell. And then that was where she started the breathing because it's like it like honored, and that works for me. Again, this is not for everybody. You may feel stupid driving around doing that, but when I can land in the present and then control the controllables, which is breathing, I can then figure out at least where I am. And then I can go make a decision because I'm not basing it on those past patterns. I'm not basing it on that front facing thing. It's just there's something that we are not taught in America and the West about your body. You're just not taught to land in your body at all. And most dudes that I work with or see at, these retreats, they're just like, oh man, I've got a body. I didn't know that. I actually have a body. Do you do breath work every day? Do you do it as a part of your practice, or how do you do breath work?
Do I do it every day? Almost. Or I might just do like a couple seconds at a particular point throughout the day. I might do something in the morning. I do it at a variety of different times. And again, it can be done in a minute. Or I've done breath work where it's an hour of just
Oh, I've
breathing.
never done that. You probably got high doing that, dude. You probably
You
got
you you
you out of body experience, man. You know what I'm saying?
you get different experiences from doing that. So, there's a lot of stuff that you can do in a few minutes, and there's a lot of stuff you can do at that 10-15 minute mark. And then if you really want to go in, there's stuff you can do at the hour. And I thought, like, how am I going to do an hour of breath work? This is wild. But yet I've done it. And different things work for different people. I think the other thing is getting rid of the phone, stop being glued to it.
Oh, geez,
That
man. That
still sets
thing.
me off.
Gosh, man, it's so hard, man. It's like because the world, you have the sum of all human knowledge in your hand. You know what's happening, everything all at once, all the time, and like we are not built for that, man. We're just not. We're just not. But then like it's this weird trap because it's like if you were on the Oregon Trail when you found the water supply, you hung out there because it kept you alive. And like especially guys like us who are doing podcasts, texting, business contacts, everybody's online. Like it's just so hard to escape it. And then your buddies will send you a meme, and then the next thing you know, you've looked up and it's 25 minutes later and you're still looking at dog videos or something stupid. And you're like, my life is just disappeared. Like, how do we do that? How do we put down the phone? I mean, some guys will just be like, be disciplined, put it down. But addiction doesn't work that way, y'all, and we're all addicted. How do you get away from the phone? How do you do that?
Well, so first thing, my phone is 24/7 on silent.
Oh, nice.
The other thing you can do, and I have my phone programmed, turn it to black and white,
Oh,
because
that's interesting. Yeah.
black and white will turn. So here, I'll turn mine on. There, black and white, nothing flicks out at you. Like the color stuff doesn't attract you. The alerts don't attract you. And honestly, if you watch videos in black and white, it just not there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
So it going back to what we had talked about before, you're taking a memory that's 4K and fully immersive into black and white. It's like it just doesn't attract the same way.
Interesting.
My phone does not go upstairs when we go up to bed. It stays downstairs. So granted, I have an iPad next to me, but
Yeah.
I don't take the phone, which I treat them differently because my iPad has books, it has my breathwork app, it has some
Totally.
other things on there that I do differently.
And
But
you can not put apps on one if you don't want to, and maybe the apps are on the other. So you know your
correct.
triggers. Like if Instagram's your trigger, don't put
Yes.
Instagram on the upstairs
But
device.
it still can pull me, but it's less so. So keeping
Notifications
it
are one
away.
too, man. I don't have notifications on anything at all.
I
I
will tell
control when I check my messages. I'm checking text at 1 o'clock. I'm not doing it all the time. Just having to do that.
when people come to my house and their phones are not on silent and they've got it turned way up, literally I get triggered by all the noise that
Ding,
the phone. I'm
ding.
like, what's going on? Like,
Yeah, man.
I'm like, how do you live with that?
Yeah, man.
And so it just blows my mind that people live like that. I do
Yeah.
want to talk about something because I've noticed this with guys. They have a problem, right? So maybe they get a breakup, a divorce, a bad business, whatever. They have a problem and they go do some work and let's just say they solve the problem, whatever that really means, and they get back to a state of okay.
Yeah.
They stop.
100%. Yep.
They
I did it.
don't
I did the
keep
thing. I found the
going.
thing. Yeah.
But they're still not at that great level. They're just above they're at a tolerable level.
Mm,
And then they run away. I'm like,
yeah.
what the hell?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's because I thought about this the other day. I think again that goes back to another thing is like don't go to your news feed or your reels for psychology. Like the algorithm is going to get you into what you want to hear and it's going to convince you found your inner child and you solved that one trauma that fixed everything. And really it's a commitment to like you got to learn about yourself over and over and over again forever because you don't really like you were talking about earlier there's layers to it and like we have to figure like you have it's almost like a commitment of I want to know myself better and I've found this too when I started this I wanted to be happier. I wanted to be more joyful. I wanted to be a better dad. I wanted to be a better husband. I wanted to be a better me. It's kind of the Tony Robbins nonsense, just like everything's better all the time. We just want to be happy and joyful and pleasure and all. But dude, I am most content in life when I'm even. And like when I'm in a space where I can step into something, like I recently had to grieve something. That's another whole thing that I've learned on journey. I'll talk about that here in a minute. But like I needed to be able to shift into grief and really feel that and let it overwhelm me a little bit and really let that whole emotion pass through my whole body and come out. Very deep grief about something. And then, but then being able to get back to the center. Like I am happiest in the center because I know I can go either direction now. And I think that we're taught, especially entrepreneurs, God love what we've done to each other in the past 20 years with podcasts. But like we're taught that like everything's peak moment, everything is the cabana on Cancun, everything is the making more money, everything is we're taught this dopamine crazy cycle of if I'm not living in a peak moment, then it's not good enough. And if I reach a peak moment, then there's got to be a higher moment to get a bigger peak moment. But like when you kind of commit to like living a great life for yourself, it's more about just being that steady place where you don't have overwhelming emotion dictating you badly. You don't have overwhelming emotion. It's like everything is accessible when you need it instead of just like crushing yourself all the time chasing peaks. Because I did this and burnt myself out horrifically in about 2023. I really found the burnout because I hit such a high level that I had been aiming for, and it just hit me. I was like, "Oh, it only feels this way because I hit this level, and now I'm going to chase another level, and then I'm going to burn it down and chase another level." And we get in that trap. So I actually shoot for an even place where I can step into a non-pleasurable feeling or a pleasurable feeling at will. And if I can find that steadiness, man, that's where I'm most content. And I actually can have some joy in my life.
Have you read anything from Michael Singer?
I don't think so. No.
Oh, Michael Singer does The Untethered Soul. So
Okay.
here is the premise of Michael. I've met Michael. Michael's phenomenal. If you haven't had a chance to hear his story, he's an entrepreneur, which most people don't realize. He actually created one of the first companies that took medical coding and records for the insurance companies and took it from paper to electronic.
Mm,
Ran the company way up. I mean, Ray Kurzweil was on his board. Then he got in trouble with the government because his one of his partners was doing illegal stuff. It's all this wild stuff. But forget
crazy
about all.
story.
Nobody knows about that. They know about Michael Singer as the grounded guy. And
Mm,
Michael's like, look, we're sitting on the planet Earth, which is one tiny, teeny planet in a universe of, I don't know, 1 billion planets that's been here for 1 billion years. And you somehow think that what you want, you're going to be able to control the world and the universe and everything to
yeah.
meet your damn needs. He's like, give it up. He
Yeah,
goes,
man.
just be like, what he basically said is, these emotions are going to come and they're going to go, and just acknowledge them, notice them, feel them, and let them pass. He says it's like a stream. When you have a stream and it's full of rocks, the stream is all gurgly and wild and crazy and everything, right? When
Yeah.
you remove the rocks, the stream just flows. So
Mm,
when you let go of the things you're holding on to, the stream flows. And people are like, well, what do I do then? He's like, nothing.
yeah.
The thoughts will come, the emotions will come like clouds in the sky. You're like, oh, I see anger is here because that one did that. I can feel that anger.
Mm-hmm.
Bye bye, anger.
It's like what's the little? It's a balloon, right? Have you ever seen that?
Is
What's that
that,
from? I
yeah.
can't. It's like so you have imagine you have a red balloon. Now let the balloon go. It's like it sounds so corny, but like it really is. Like that is part of it, man. Is being
Yeah.
able to stop and feel it. But the world does not want dudes to feel their emotions because that makes people feel unsafe. If they're, they might fall apart sometimes. They might do this. But one of my favorite analogies is like buffaloes running into a storm. Like cows run away from a storm. And what happens is that they stay away from the storm a little longer, but the storm overtakes them. Then they're running with the storm and they just get rained on for twice as long. But buffaloes run into the storm and they feel it as hard as it can, but they run out the other side quicker, basically. As a man who feels his emotions very deeply, which is another ADHD and heightens emotions, they can be very, very challenging at times, especially when your brain's bouncing around. Like, but man, if I will just go get in my car and drive down the street and cry or just go get just whatever you got to do to feel that emotion faster, you just feel so much better. Like your body's wanting to release the energy, just let it go, and then you can make decisions that are actually cognitive instead of in your emotions in your heart.
And I think I've come to learn, I don't know if it's true, but I've heard anger is easier than sadness.
Mm, which is why a lot of men are mad. Totally,
Just
man.
saying.
But sadness feels better. I tell you that much. Crying, I love to cry, dude. Dude, I mean, I don't want to do it in front of my kids or nothing all the time. They know I cry, and we talk about emotions, and I'm like not that kind of guy. Like I tell my son, like, dude, if you need to cry, cry, man. That's part of the process. But dude, man, like this grief process, man, you'll love this because like this is just totally our world right now. Is like I love being in nature.
Mhm.
I'm not a tree hugger, but Nate, there's something healing about it, man, when you just go out there for a day. And I woke up one morning in a hotel out in Tucson, Arizona, and something happened about a year before this. Last year had a couple really significant deaths in my family, in my life, but I was going so hard I didn't really have time to sit and grieve it. You know what I'm saying? And I had a dream one night. The dream triggered all of this emotion. I woke up, dude, almost wailing, like crying, like something, like someone had just died in front of me. Not like this had happened. This huge traumatic event happened a year before, and I got up and I went out and I just wandered in the desert for like 2 hours, man, and I just freaking grieved this thing that I didn't. I thought I had handled it. I thought I had moved past it. I thought I had talked about it with therapy and all this people and retreats, and but the grief had been like down in there. I hadn't fully grieved this thing, and I think grief is a very scary emotion for most people because it's like anger, the worst possible sadness, everything rolled into one ball. And I had this epiphany. You know, my background, I grew up in Southern Baptist churches, and and we have my beliefs have changed a lot and evolved on how I interact with like the stories in the Bible. One day I was sitting in the church and I was like, everyone in this room believes something a little different. So we all have to figure out what our relationship is with God and things like that. And I was sitting there and I was thinking about the Jesus story. And after this had passed, and I felt so good after it had passed. The sun came up, the grief stopped, and everything just like felt like, oh, I'm so glad that I did that. And I was sitting there thinking about how that story kind of works from like a Jordan Peterson type view. And like, everyone focuses on like God is, God loves the world, God loves us, and Jesus loved us, and the greatest thing you can do for a friend is lay down your life, and all these beautiful things we get, from whatever tradition you come from of Christianity and whatever. But I was sitting there and it hit me all of a sudden, something I think so many men miss. If you really look at that story, there's love and sacrifice, which is amazing. And then everyone skips ahead to Sunday when there's something new. There's resurrection. New things are now possible. The phoenix rises, whatever it is. Dude, in the middle of that story, God grieves. God grieves so hard over what happens, which I think is why it's the son dying, because that's the most grief someone can imagine is your child dying, right? And like the grief like shakes the earth, empties the tombs, splits the veil, like however you want to read into the story. But like I'm like, oh dude, the answer to change, the answer to resurrecting your life, the answer towards stepping into greatness is what do you love enough to do it for and sacrifice for? Passion means sacrifice, it means suffering. And then can you grieve all the things that have happened or that have lost? The grief is where the real power in that story like comes from. But we're told to suck it up, don't cry, keep moving, go to work on Monday. And man, I just feel like men have been completely robbed of that process of love and sacrifice and grief that leads to the next level, the building the life you want, the something new. Does that make sense at all?
It makes total sense. And I'll tell you from my own experience, I can work with a coach on grief, but you have to feel it somatically. And
100%. It's
if
not in your
you
head.
can get a somatic coach to take you through grief, it is a whole different world. Have you ever been in a live session doing somatic work with
Oh yeah,
other
yeah.
guys on grief?
Totally, man. Yeah, it's when guys get into their body and find it, and it comes erupting up.
Yes.
It's freaking beautiful when you see it happen.
I have seen a good somatic coach can take a guy in 3 minutes or less from having a conversation to complete breakdown.
Yeah, 100%. Because they know how to get them to it in the body, which is where all that's
Well,
stored,
and they're
basically.
catching it. Like a good somatic coach will listen to what you say and he'll catch those micro flinches. He'll be like, "Whoa,
Mm-hmm.
what was that right there?" And you'll
Mm-hmm.
start, and then he's like, "What was that?" And 60 seconds in, he is drilled right into those little teeny things that we do that most people miss, including ourselves, and they just poke the bear, and it's like,
You got to have
boom.
a very you want to have a really good trained somatic coach though. So
Yes.
let me tell you, I'll tell you a funny story. So Jocelyn was my wife was Jocelyn was she really likes somatic work, and she was doing a certification to try to learn how to be a somatic person and kind of try that on to try to help people and see if it was something that she might want to do. And so she's taken this somatic course, and she gets through like a couple modules, sessions, works with the coach, and she's really getting into it. And she goes, "Hey, I can I practice on you a little bit?" Okay, so listen. So we're sitting there. This is so weird. People who listen to us are gonna be like, "This dude's crazy." So we're sitting there, and she takes me through this somatic process, and she kind of like leans into it, and I find this like catch in my throat. I find this, all the things you do when you're like really getting out of your head. And all of a sudden, I felt this emotion. Couldn't really name it. It felt not good, but like sad maybe. And I just started going like, when you do somatic, sometimes you'll just go, oh, like you'll just make a noise and you're not really prepared for it. And I started going like, oh, and she's like, yeah, keep going, dig in there, feel it, whatever she did to prompt me. And I started going like, oh, 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 like it felt like pain, right? And I was like, but it was too much for me because sometimes you also got to know when to back out and not go down the rabbit hole because you might not be ready for what's coming. And dude, for like the next 30 minutes, I just kept going, oh, oh, oh. And I'm like, Jocelyn, help me get out of this. She goes, I haven't got to that part in the course yet. I don't know how to make it stop. I like had to go outside, get some air, and like start looking at it, like just like I was howling at the moon for like 30 minutes until it finally passed. And she had to like call the person that was training her to like, she's like, okay, do this, do this, do this. I'm like, so make sure you vet whoever is taking you through it, and they're not on chapter 2 of whatever their course is, because this is deep work. And once the domino top falls, man, it won't stop.
It
Not
is.
good at all.
It's funny because I went through and I still go through a methodology called Rosen method. I don't know if you've
Mm,
heard of it.
have not heard of it.
Rosen method's really good for guys. So Rosen method is what they do is, for a lot of us, we can't feel stuff
Hmm.
and we don't know where stuff is trapped in our bodies.
Yep.
And what they actually do is they have the intuitive sense to go feel and notice where things are trapped in your body.
Yeah.
And even
Yeah.
though you don't specifically know it, they can help to release it.
Yeah.
And so you don't even need to know the story,
Yeah.
but a good person can go in and release these different things that are trapped in different, these energies trapped in different parts of your body. And over time, you and I went through the same one place where the concept is subtraction. Not that we
Totally.
need more. What Rosen method does is subtraction, and they don't even tell you what got subtracted. You
Yeah.
just all of a sudden notice that, oh, I didn't get triggered, or that doesn't bother me, or and it's pretty wild how they're able to
Yeah.
do
It's
that.
one of the most useful things I've ever learned was just being able to understand how to get into my body. Now, let me kind of just like wrap up with like this last question here. So I think one thing that we all probably, because we all grew up. How old are you? I'm 47. I'll be 48 in a month.
60.
Oh, you look great, dude. You're getting younger. Dude, your face is getting smoother every time I see you, Rocky. We both grew up in the 70s, 80s. Like, there's all these different propaganda campaigns controlling behavior, whether it was the eggs in the frying pan and all this different stuff. And a mutual friend of ours kind of introduced us to the concept of, what we call psychedelics, right? And like how that can do things. I actually have been investing in some psychedelic companies that are on the forefront of like using MDMA for soldiers with PTSD, mushrooms, psilocybin, things like that. I know that like right now in all 50 states in the United States of America, you can use ketamine for things like treatment resistant depression. That particular medication completely freed me from being stuck in my mind. It was just unbelievable how much prescribed psychedelic use of ketamine to help you dissociate from your emotions you can't quite control and things like that. And psychedelics are much more mainstream now. I think a lot of people maybe listening have tried some different things and done that. But I remember the first time I did any kind of substance like that for mental health work. And I remember just my eyes all of a sudden opened to there was a different way of thinking. We don't use them all the time, but how does that how did that unlock things for you to get to these other tools and be able to get into your inner world a little more?
I find each one is very different.
Mm-hmm.
They all have their own way of doing things. I also find that where and how it's done is dramatically different.
Yeah, set and setting is
And
big time.
in some of the places, actually, I shouldn't say in some, I think in the majority of places, there's no integration support. Not in the
Amen,
moment,
brother. Yep.
not in the moment. And what you get post is minimal, especially if it's done. Forget about group. You can't do integration group. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a part of it, yes, but not not for year deep stuff.
In integration, the term we're using is awareness is gained quicker through these medicines, and when you get that awareness you have to integrate it like into your life. Like how do you apply what you've learned? I've heard a great way of saying it is integration is like your brain imagine your brain is a field of grass, and you've walked all these game trails that are crooked through it and it causes problems. But the use of these medications they're finding can mow a straight path, and then you have to keep walking down that path until the old path grows up, or you'll just go back to your old patterns and ways. So like an integration support is it's the 3 months after the experience that matter, not the experience necessarily itself that I've found. Right, the experience just opens the door.
Correct. It opens the door, and then you have to do the work on the other side of the door.
Dang
And
work.
so I have found in some of the places in the moment you don't get much support. Sometimes they don't even keep a tight container, meaning you can get yourself in more trouble than you can deal with. And then there's other times where, like ketamine, I can work without a container. What I mean
Same.
is
Yep, that's why I
ketamine
like
I
it so
can
much.
just be on my own because I think it's a shorter, quicker,
Yeah,
less intense
45
type
minutes to
of
an hour,
journey.
it's done.
So with that, it's easier to work with that for that. But I also think it's a different it's just different.
They're all different for sure.
They're all different. So and everyone's going to react differently and every journey is going to give you a different place.
Yeah.
And so you
Yeah.
just have to figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Sometimes it's a sequencing thing too.
Yeah.
What to do before other things. And but I think the bigger part and the part that most people don't do is the follow-up work
Yeah.
and the continued support for it. So I have had a ton of different types of support, a ton of different types of coaches, a ton of different types of post support experience, which
Yeah.
is, I think, what really helped me. And
Do, do you think you could have gotten to where you are now in your like inner work journey, like building the life you want to build as a man? Do you think you could have got there without a few of these experiences, or did they help accelerate the experience? Like I don't know if I could understand. I don't know if I had never felt my brain feel a different way of feeling and thinking on the experience. I don't know if I could have even understood an aiming point of how I wanted to grow. Does that make sense? Heal.
Does. Some people can.
Yeah, totally.
Most people can't. I
Right.
I don't think most people can, because if they could, they all would have. And the
Yes,
fact
I
that they
agree.
haven't says we all need a little bit of help. We need something to break our paradigm, to break our programming and say, hey, I mean, to me, it's the biggest mirror, and it's a
Yeah.
truthful mirror. And it's
Can't
like,
hide
hey,
from it for sure.
check this out. I know you asked me about this, but let me show you that.
Yeah, man.
Here you go. And so I think,
I stopped asking, dude. Like intentions. Dude, I don't. Dude, I just go, show me what I need to see, and I just go into the container, and I'm just like, wherever, whatever it is, I'm just like, all right, I've stopped asking because you don't listen.
well, maybe we'll
It
have to work
listens,
on
but it,
better
it shows you what it
questions.
knows you need, not what you think you need, dude. Good stuff, man. Well, listen,
Well,
man. I love being friends with you, man. I love guys willing to do something different. I think that like we all get into that comfort of safety of the old railroad track we were given growing up. And that railroad track works until you're coming up on the bridge that's out. And you better switch tracks really, really quick. But I have so much respect for you, dude, for all the work you do as an entrepreneur. Just all the just knowing there's other guys out there that are getting into their emotions, learning how to feel them, and trying to not be better. I hate that terminology, but to grow and to heal. And it's just amazing stuff, man. But what are you working on right now? What are you doing right now? Is there anywhere you want to send people to if they want to listen to this podcast, learn more about Rocky?
oh, yeah. So we have two podcasts. One is literally for the business owner who's wants to grow his cash and his profit without killing himself. That's
Yep.
Profit Answer Man. And then if you want to do the softer side, which makes you a better business owner, better business person, all of that. That's the Richer Soul podcast, where we talk about the softer side of life that also does affect the money side. But
Yeah, man.
some people aren't ready for that. So we've got them broken out to meet you where you are and help you with whatever it is you want help with.
Love it, man. Rocky, appreciate you, brother. Thanks for being on the show today, dude.
Thank you for having me.
All right, guys, that wraps up today's Great Men podcast. Hope you got a lot of value from my conversation today. And I just want to invite you, if you would like to be in a group of other great men who are doing that inner work, who are working hard to tick all those boxes, man, to be a great dad, be a great husband, go to the next level, whatever that is for you, I want to invite you over to greatmen.org and check out the Great Men community that we have there. We've got an online community where we're talking about real stuff. This isn't some kind of crazy mastermind where somebody's going to tell you all the tactics and strategies that A, B, C, D dogmatically live to a perfect life. It's just dudes talking about their emotions, talking about how they're feeling, talking about, the things that we've talked about in our past and the things we need to get over to really build a great life by design. You can find all the information about what we're doing over there at greatmen.org. We've also got some retreats coming up. If you want to get in space and hang out with other great men, great dudes, you can find out all that information at greatmen.org. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. And my name again is Shane Sams. Follow me on social media. I hang out mostly on Facebook and Instagram. I'm on Twitter as well. Just type in Shane Sams and you're going to find all that information. And we will see you next time for another episode of the Great Men Podcast. Check it out.